There's a pattern in housing markets that has destroyed two of the world's largest economies in the last 35 years. Not damaged them, destroyed them. Complete collapse of property values, decades of economic stagnation, millions of families financially ruined. In 1989, Japan had the most expensive real estate on Earth. Tokyo land prices were so high that the Imperial Palace grounds were theoretically worth more than all of California. Banks were lending 100-year mortgages, 3 generations of debt for a single apartment. Within 3 years, it collapsed. Property values fell 87%. They still haven't recovered 35 years later. In 2008, the United States had the biggest housing boom in history. Home prices doubled in 6 years. Everyone believed real estate only goes up. Banks were giving mortgages to anyone with a pulse. No income verification, no down payment, nothing. Then it imploded. 9 million foreclosures, $16 trillion in household wealth evaporated. The global financial system nearly died. 2 times. 2 different decades. 2 different countries. But the exact same 6-stage sequence. Same warning signs. Same delusions. Same mathematical inevitability. And right now in 2025, the United States is in stage 4 of that exact same pattern. Not approaching it. Deep inside it. The math is identical. The psychology is identical. The denial is identical. This isn't speculation. This is pattern recognition across 35 years of data. And once you see how stages 1 through 3 played out in Japan in 2008, you'll understand exactly why stage 5 and 6 are coming, and why most people won't see it until their equity is gone. Let me show you the pattern. The 6 stages that every housing bubble follows. How Japan and the US 2008 walked through them step by step. And exactly where we are right now in 2025. Before we go through the stages, you need to understand what a housing bubble actually is. Not rising prices, not a hot market. A bubble. A housing bubble is when prices disconnect completely from economic fundamentals, when homes cost 10, 15, 20 times annual income instead of the historical 3 to 4 times, when monthly payments require 50, 60, 70% of income instead of the traditional 28%. When the only way prices can keep rising is if new buyers keep borrowing more. It's a Ponzi scheme. Not intentionally, but mathematically. Each new buyer needs to pay more than the last, and they can only do that by borrowing more. And lenders keep lending because prices keep rising. And prices keep rising because lenders keep lending. Until they don't, until something breaks. And when it breaks, it doesn't decline gradually. It collapses, fast, brutal, irreversible. That's what happened in Japan. That's what happened in the US in 2008. And the pattern says it's happening again right now. Let's start with Japan. 1985 to 1991. This is the original blueprint. In 1985, Japan signed the Plaza Accord, an agreement with the US and other nations to strengthen the yen and weaken the dollar. The goal was to reduce America's trade deficit with Japan, but strengthening the yen hurt Japanese exports. Sony, Toyota, Honda, all their products became more expensive for foreign buyers. The Japanese economy started slowing. So what did the Bank of Japan do? They slashed interest rates from 5% in 1985 to 2.5% by 1987, the lowest rates in Japanese history. This is stage 1, artificially low interest rates. And it creates easy money, cheap borrowing, massive liquidity flooding into the system. Japanese banks suddenly had unlimited cheap money to lend, and they needed borrowers, so they started lending aggressively to businesses, to individuals, and especially for real estate, because real estate was seen as the safest investment. Land in Japan is scarce. The population was growing. Tokyo was becoming the financial center of Asia. Everyone believed Japanese real estate could only go up. This is the psychology of stage 1. Cheap money plus belief in permanent appreciation. It's intoxicating. By 1987, Japanese real estate prices were rising 20, 30, 40% annually. Not because incomes were rising, not because the economy was booming, because speculation had taken over. People were buying property not to live in, not to rent out, to flip, to sell to the next buyer at a higher price. Corporations were doing the same thing. Toyota, Mitsubishi, Sony, they all started buying real estate as investments. They'd borrow cheap money, buy land, watch it appreciate, borrow against the appreciation, buy more land. Banks were lending 100% of property value, sometimes 120%. They'd lend you more than the purchase price so you could furnish the place or cover fees. And the loans were insane. 100-year mortgages, 3-generation loans. Your children and grandchildren would inherit your mortgage debt. By 1989, the average Tokyo apartment cost 8 to 10 times annual household income. In some neighborhoods, 15 times. Historically, the ratio had been 3 to 4 times. But nobody cared about fundamentals anymore, because prices kept rising, and as long as prices rose, the debt didn't matter. You could always sell for more. This is stage 2. Speculation replaces fundamentals. Prices disconnect from income. Debt explodes, and everyone believes it's sustainable because it's been working. By 1989, Japanese real estate was the most expensive on Earth. The Imperial Palace grounds in Tokyo, about 3.4 square kilometers, were theoretically worth more than all the real estate in California. Think about that. One palace grounds worth more than an entire U.S. state. And what were the experts saying? Japan is different. Land is scarce. The population is dense. Tokyo is the financial capital of Asia. Real estate here will always appreciate. The media ran stories about how Japanese real estate was a safe haven, how it was backed by the world's second-largest economy, how the Japanese banking system was the strongest in the world. This is stage 3. The rationalization, the narrative that justifies insane prices. This time is different. It's never different, but in the moment, everyone believes it. By 1989, Japanese banks were lending to anyone. No income verification, minimal down payments, 100-year terms. They were lending to people who couldn't afford the payments under any reasonable scenario. But it didn't matter because property values kept rising. If the borrower defaulted, the bank could seize the property and sell it for more than the loan. This is stage 4. Credit standards collapse. Lending becomes reckless. The only thing that matters is that prices keep rising. And this is the critical stage. Because once credit standards collapse, the bubble is in its final phase. The only thing holding it up is momentum. New buyers borrowing more to pay higher prices. But momentum doesn't last forever. In 1990, the Bank of Japan realized they had a problem. Real estate prices were out of control. Speculation was rampant. The bubble was obvious. So they did what central banks do. They raised interest rates from 2.5% to 6% in 18 months. The goal was to cool the market, to slow speculation, to bring prices back to reality. Instead, it detonated the bomb. Higher interest rates meant higher mortgage payments. Buyers who could barely afford payments at 2.5% couldn't afford them at 6%. Demand collapsed. Sales froze. Prices started falling. And once prices started falling, the psychology reversed instantly. If prices are falling, why buy now? Wait, they'll be cheaper next month. This is stage 5. The trigger, the moment when the market reverses. And once it reverses, it accelerates. By 1991, Japanese real estate prices were falling 10, 20, 30% annually. By 1995, they'd fallen 50%. By 2003, 87% from the peak. 87%. If you bought a Tokyo apartment in 1989 for $1 million, by 2003 it was worth $130,000. And you still owed the mortgage. Millions of Japanese families were underwater, owing more than their homes were worth. They couldn't sell, couldn't refinance, couldn't move. Banks collapsed. The entire financial system nearly failed. The government had to bail out banks, nationalize some, let others die. And the economy? Japan entered what they call the lost decades. 30 years of stagnation, deflation, zero growth. The Nikkei stock index peaked in 1989 at 38,916. It didn't return to that level until 2024. 35 years. That's stage 6, collapse, and the devastation lasts decades. Now let's jump forward 17 years. United States, 2001 to 2008. The pattern repeated. Exactly. Same 6 stages. Different country. Same result. After the dot-com crash in 2000 and the 9/11 attacks in 2001, the Federal Reserve slashed interest rates from 6.5% in 2000 to 1% by 2003. The goal was to stimulate the economy, prevent recession, encourage borrowing and spending, and it worked. But it created a flood of cheap money, and that money flowed into real estate. Mortgage rates fell to historic lows. 30-year fixed mortgages at 5–6%. Adjustable rate mortgages at 3–4%. Suddenly, people who couldn't afford a $300,000 house at 8% interest could afford it at 5%, or they thought they could. Banks had unlimited cheap money to lend, and they needed borrowers, so they started pushing mortgages aggressively. This is stage 1, cheap money, easy credit, the foundation of every bubble. By 2004, U.S. home prices were rising 15, 20, 25% annually in hot markets, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Miami, California, and just like Japan, people stopped buying homes to live in. They bought to flip. Buy a house, hold it for 6 months, sell it for 20% more. TV shows glorified it. Flip this house. Property ladder. Everyone thought they could get rich flipping real estate. Investors were buying multiple properties, using the equity from one to buy the next, leveraging up, and the loans were insane. No doc loans, stated income, ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets. You could get a $500,000 mortgage by claiming you made $200,000 a year. No verification, just sign here. Adjustable rate mortgages with teaser rates, 2% for the first 2 years, then adjusts to 7%. But nobody cared about the adjustment because they'd sell before then. By 2006, the median home price was 5 to 6 times median income. In some markets, 8 to 10 times. Historically, it had been 3 to 4 times. But nobody cared because prices kept rising. This is stage 2, speculation, reckless lending, prices disconnected from fundamentals. By 2005, the narrative was everywhere. Real estate always goes up. They're not making any more land. Buy now or be priced out forever. Ben Bernanke, chairman of the Federal Reserve, said in 2005, "We've never had a decline in house prices on a nationwide basis." David Luria, chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, wrote a book in 2006 titled, "Why the Real Estate Boom Will Not Bust." The media ran endless stories about how the housing market was strong, how subprime mortgages were safe, how the economy was solid. This is stage 3, the rationalization, the experts telling you it's different this time. It wasn't. By 2006, U.S. banks were lending to anyone, subprime borrowers with credit scores under 600, no income verification, no down payment, nothing. They were giving $500,000 mortgages to people making $30,000 a year, people who couldn't afford the payments even at the teaser rate. But it didn't matter, because home prices kept rising. If the borrower defaulted, the bank could foreclose and sell the house for more than the loan. And the banks weren't even holding the loans. They were packaging them into mortgage-backed securities and selling them to investors, pension funds, insurance companies, foreign governments. The risk was distributed, or so they thought. This is stage 4, credit standards collapse. The bubble is in its final phase. If you're watching this and you're starting to see the pattern, if you're realizing that what happened in Japan in 2008 is happening again right now, then you're ahead of 95% of people. And that's exactly why you need to subscribe to Economy Time Machine. Because when stage 5 hits, when the trigger event happens, most people won't understand what's happening or why. But you will. Hit subscribe right now so you're ready for what's coming next. In 2006, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates from 1% in 2004 to 5.25% by 2006. The goal was to cool inflation, to slow the economy, to prevent overheating, but it killed the housing market. Higher interest rates meant higher mortgage payments, especially for adjustable rate mortgages. People who had 2% teaser rates suddenly face 7% rates. Their payments doubled. They couldn't afford it. They defaulted. And once defaults started, home prices started falling. And once prices started falling, the psychology flipped. Why buy now when prices are falling? Wait. They'll be cheaper next month. Sales froze. Inventory exploded. Prices collapsed. By 2007, subprime mortgage defaults were spiking. By 2008, major financial institutions were failing. Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, AIG. The entire global financial system nearly collapsed. This is stage 5, the trigger, the reversal. The moment when everyone realizes the bubble was a bubble. From 2006 to 2012, U.S. home prices fell 33% nationally. In some markets, 50, 60%. 9 million foreclosures, families thrown out of their homes, neighborhoods filled with empty houses, $16 trillion in household wealth evaporated, retirement accounts destroyed, savings gone, the unemployment rate hit 10%, the economy contracted. The government had to bail out banks with $700 billion in taxpayer money. And the recovery, it took until 2016 for home prices to return to 2006 levels. 10 years. That's stage 6, collapse, devastation, and it takes a decade to recover. Now let's talk about 2025, the United States. Right now, we're in stage 4, and the pattern says stage 5 and 6 are coming. Let me show you exactly why. After COVID in 2020, the Federal Reserve slashed interest rates to 0%. Zero, the lowest in American history. Mortgage rates fell to 2.53%, the cheapest money ever. And just like Japan in 1985 and the US in 2003, cheap money flooded into real estate. From 2020 to 2022, US home prices rose 40% nationally. In some markets, 60, 80%. Not because incomes rose, not because the economy boomed, because cheap money and speculation. Investors bought houses sight unseen. Bidding wars. Offers $50,000, $100,000 over asking. Waiving inspections. By 2022, the median home price was 5.8 times median income. In some markets, 8, 10, 12 times. Historically, it's been 3 to 4 times. Prices have completely disconnected from fundamentals. Right now, the narrative is, there's a housing shortage. Millennials are buying. Remote work increased demand. Prices will stay high. Every real estate agent, every economist, every media outlet is saying the same thing. This time is different. It's not. We're here right now. Lenders are offering 1% down payment mortgages, 40-year terms, interest-only loans. They're lending to people who can barely afford the payments, but it doesn't matter because prices are high. This is stage 4, the final stage before the trigger. And here's what most people don't understand. We're not in stage 1 or 2. We're in stage 4. The bubble is fully inflated. The only question is when it pops. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates from 0% in 2020 to 5.5% by 2023. Mortgage rates went from 3% to 7%. But the housing market hasn't collapsed yet. Why? Because of a unique factor. Existing homeowners are locked in at 3% mortgages. They can't sell because they'd have to buy a new house at 7%, so they're staying put. This has created a supply shortage, low inventory, which is keeping prices artificially high. But this can't last forever. Eventually, people have to move. Job changes, divorces, deaths, life happens. And when inventory starts rising, when forced sellers hit the market, prices will start falling. And once prices start falling, the psychology flips. Just like Japan. Just like 2008. The pattern says stage 6 follows stage 5, always, without exception. When the trigger hits, when prices start falling, the collapse will be fast and brutal. Homeowners will be underwater, banks will tighten lending, foreclosures will spike, the economy will contract. And just like Japan in 2008, it will take years, maybe decades to recover. The pattern is clear. 6 stages. Japan followed them. The U.S. in 2008 followed them. And the U.S. in 2025 is following them right now. We're in stage 4. The credit standards have collapsed. The bubble is fully inflated. The only thing missing is the trigger. And the trigger is coming. It could be rising unemployment. It could be a recession. It could be a geopolitical crisis. It could be something we don't see coming. But the pattern says it's coming. And when it does, stage 5 and 6 follow with mathematical certainty. 3 times, 3 housing bubbles, 3 collapses. Same 6 stages, same result. The only question is whether you'll see it coming, or whether you'll be caught holding the bag when it pops. If this opened your eyes to where we actually are in the cycle, if you finally understand that this isn't fear-mongering but pattern recognition, then you need to subscribe to Economy Time Machine right now. Because when stage 5 hits, when the housing market starts collapsing, you'll want to understand exactly what's happening and what to do next. The answers aren't hiding in the future, they're written in the past. And I'll show you exactly where to look. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next one.